So welcome to the podcast. Dave Holland here from Results Rules OK. And again, in line with attracting and interviewing, speaking with interesting people, my guest is definitely interesting today. I'll let James introduce himself properly, but James Taylor from Sports Stars. James, we met via phone while I was in the Merry Hill Centre buying a pair of trousers. Was that 2000 and...
Crikey. I mean, we must be talking... Well, got to be 10 years ago at least.
Got it, at least. I was only 15, so a long time ago. Anyway, James, welcome to the conversation. Please, for everybody who's listening and watching, just quick an intro. Tell us who's James Taylor?
Yeah. So I started thinking about what I was going to do when I was probably towards the end of university.
Mm-hmm.
I studied in Cardiff and I was looking at what jobs there were out there, and nothing really grabbed me, nothing really excited me.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew even back then that whatever I was going to do, because I wasn't at school, I wasn't very good with authority and things like that, and you start to realize that you're not so compliant, and I kind of realized that whatever I did, it had to be me rowing my own boat, because I was probably extremely unemployable.
Yeah.
So I had I'd been fortunate enough that I'd worked with children out in Africa in a gap year before uni, out in the States afterwards, after uni, working with kids that were going through the kind of MLS youth camps, and it was fantastic, and just got a buzz for it. And the thing was, what I noticed was whether I was doing it from a voluntary point of view or doing it from a paid point of view, whether it was with underprivileged backgrounds or privileged backgrounds, the one thing that always remained the same was that big, huge buzz that I got from seeing children develop in teamwork, leadership, self-esteem, all the great stuff that they get from sport.
Sure.
So I wanted to have that impact on more than 30 children at a time.
Yeah.
I knew that I had to create some kind of organization to do that. And so I came back from the States and I was due to go traveling. So for my 21st birthday, my mum and dad had given me an IOU for one of those round the world travel tickets with SDA Travel.
Yeah.
Where you stop off at in Australia, Asia, America, and you do that whole gap year type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good for you. Yeah.
And but I came back and I had an idea for a business. I wanted to set up a sports coaching business. So my first pitch was to my mum and dad, which was to ask them to convert that IOU for a travel ticket to a few quid so I could get going. And I persisted, and eventually they agreed. Okay. And they gave me 1,000 quid, which I thought was a lot of money, until that soon disappeared by the time I bought a bit of marketing, some kits, insurance and everything. So it was either startup in Leicestershire, where I was from, or Cardiff, where I'd been for the last few years at uni.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I would do it in Cardiff, where I had friends, contacts, people from sports clubs at the uni that could help. Sure. So off I went on the train back up to Cardiff. Mm-hmm. Had nowhere to stay. I just rang a couple of mates, can I stay with you tonight?
Right.
So basically I just lived on mates' sofas for a good few months.
Right.
So I was sofa surfing. I was using the university library as my office,
headquarters.
That was it. Yeah. And that was kind of how I got going. I was working in the Hard Rock Cafe and the Walkabout in the evenings, so the days free. Wow. to get the business going. Because back then, you see, Dave, there didn't seem to be this big investment push that there is now. Nowadays, I'm talking to a lot of entrepreneurs that are starting out, and it seems to be that the first thing you do is you get your pitch deck ready to go for investment before you've even got a sales plan. which, you know, for me, I'm a bootstrapper, you know, and so that kind of goes against the grain a little bit. But
do you think, just out of interest, because I agree with you, there seems to be this, it's flipped from when, you know, and I've started businesses and all that, you had the same sort of thing, and you sort of get a phone and a laptop and a cup of coffee and off you go. Now it seems to have changed, where you go down the whole pitch route, investors and blah, 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 and then you start the business. Is that, what's the best way of doing it? If somebody's, somebody listening to this now and they're thinking, I want to start a business, should they wait for investors, do the sensible thing, or should they just get on with it and, you know, go couch surfing for a while?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I get it. If you've got a prototype for a technical tech product, and you know, and you're not a coder yourself, and you have to go and get some investment so you can pay somebody to build it. I get that, but I think at every single opportunity, if you can, bootstrap it, fund it by going out and getting some customers. And what I find is that entrepreneurs that do that, that they just go out there, like you say, laptop, put a jacket on, off they go, go pitching what they can do to potential customers, get funded in through the customers, make a profit, reinvest, go again. I think it builds a stronger entrepreneur. I think it builds an entrepreneur with the right habits. I think it sets them up for the future, because like when I started, you know, it was literally a case of I had to sell so that I could get a room in a house rather than a sofa in a house. You know,
well, you're selling to eat, aren't you? Literally, he's in survival mode. I think that, as you say, that sharpens the mind. And I do see a lot of, you know, startups where they go down the funding route and they get investors, they get the cash, so it's all good. But that becomes a cushion of comfort, and then they sort of tick along doing elegant things, but never actually picking up the phone and making some money. And then the funding runs out, and they're back to square one if you're not careful.
That's right. And so they get the funding. They get from the funding, they get to put themselves on a nice little salary. And they're comfortable.
Exactly.
And where's the hunger there? And you see it all the time. We call it ABS syndrome, anything but sales. And you see it all the time. They're talking about a run. I've got a runway. This is when my runway goes until. And you're saying, okay, what about revenue? What sales? Oh no, well the product's not ready. And I think sometimes they let perfect get in the way of good enough.
Absolutely.
And then maybe that's an excuse as well, not to have to pick up the phone, because people don't like to cold call. People don't like to knock doors.
Exactly.
But I say unfortunately, I don't think it's unfortunately, but I think that's what you've got to do.
Do you think, I mean, again, do you find it, just in your experience, we'll come back onto your journey in a second, but I find a lot of people that sales is a sort of dirty word for a lot of people. They want to be business owner, entrepreneurs, whatever you want to call it, startups. But when it comes down to the S word, they don't like it. They don't like having those conversations, not prepared for it, and that trips them up. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I don't know whether people that don't understand sales can see it as maybe like a Del Boy type thing, and you know, a bit of a rogue. But I had this conversation with somebody called me up a couple of weeks ago, and I had a Zoom with her, and this was her challenge. Her challenge was, how do I get it out there? And she had a kind of negative connotation of selling. But what I tried to do, and where we got to, was get her to see that actually, you know, it's not, the job isn't to go out there and sell things to people that don't need those things. You're a professional problem solver. People have got problems, and you're professional, you know, you're the professional solution to that problem. If there isn't a value in what you've got to offer, then the business won't last a few weeks. However, if people want to buy it, you are solving a problem.
I think it's a different viewpoint on it. I think, I enjoy sales and selling and the prospecting and the marketing conversations, not because I want to sell something particularly, but I want to be involved in solving a problem for somebody. And as you say, if somebody sees value in what I do and what you do and everything else, they do see it. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs out there, they miss that point, and they avoid the telephone or the networking, whatever it is.
That's right.
And they just never get around to it.
Or they go and get the funding.
And then sit back and go,
hire a salesperson. But the problem, but then the problem is, if they've not done it themselves, how do you manage that salesperson?
Yeah.
How do you make sure you recruit the right one? Because salespeople are very good at interviewing and selling themselves.
Yeah.
And also, you know, there are obviously excellent salespeople out there, but I think in a startup, by far the best person to sell the business is the founder.
Absolutely.
You know, they're the one with the passion.
Yep.
And I really think that kind of that magic dust should be the last thing that the founder lets go of.
Yes.
You know, we've talked about this before, but
sure.
It's very important that the founder, the business owner, can get themselves to a position as quickly as they can where they work on the business, not in it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think that in terms of what they let go of, I believe that, and it does depend on their skills, but if you can let go of operations before you let go of sales and then let go of sales last, then I think that's wise, because you know there are lots of people out there that are good at management, good at operations.
Yeah.
Much harder to find really good salespeople.
Exactly.
And you know, and within the entrepreneur, that's where the magic dust is, isn't it?
Absolutely right. No, it's true. So you're couch surfing in Cardiff.
Oh,
It sounds really exciting. No, you start your business, you get going.
Yeah.
What was the model, and how did you start to get traction, and what was the journey? How was your journey progressing?
Yeah. So I started off, again, the whole bootstrapping piece was, what can I do as quickly as possible to get some funds in?
Yeah.
So I decided to run. I ran two. We were coming up to February half term. That was the next kind of school holiday period. So I set up and marketed two sporting holiday courses.
Okay.
Went round the schools, flying, doing assemblies in schools to get the kids really excited, to get them to come along. And got two camps up and running. Right. Really profitable. That allowed me to get some cash in. Yeah. But of course, running stuff in the school holidays is a seasonal business. It's not a full-time business where you can employ people permanently, and that's where I needed to be. Mm-hmm. So I was looking at how could we generate it into something that could get into schools in curriculum time. Yeah. So I came across a law that was coming in called PPA. Mm-hmm. Stands for Planning, Preparation and Assessment. Right. And that basically, the law that was coming in meant that every teacher in a primary school had to have 10% of their time away from the classroom to do their marking and their planning. Right. Okay. So 10% of their time. So 10% of their time teaching is basically half a day a week. Yeah. So if you're a head teacher with 10 teachers on roll, you've got to find 5 days of cover. Yeah. And not just babysitters, it's got to be delivering the curriculum. Absolutely. So at the time, head teachers were pulling their hair out, thinking, how are we going to cover this? Mm-hmm. It's all well and good, the government putting this new initiative in place, but we're the ones on the ground level that are having to scurry around and think of how we're going to do it. So sort of figure it out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was when I was going. Well, I had to find a way to get around. So I went and got a 50 quid little moped off some guy in a back street in Cardiff somewhere. So I was going around on this moped around the schools in Cardiff. Wow. Dropping in, and I would kind of pitch up outside the school, round the corner, where I'd leave my moped, because you got to fake it till you make it. You don't want them seeing that. I'd take off my helmet, that would go under a bush somewhere, walk in with my suit at the time, because I always think that when you're selling something, you dress the way your customers dress. Sure. Started going around and making them see that actually this isn't a problem, it's actually an opportunity, because for the first time we can get subject specialists and PE specialists into school in curriculum time to deliver PE, which is traditionally a subject that your teachers aren't necessarily comfortable teaching, because they only get a few hours tuition in their year of teacher training on how to teach PE. Right. Okay. So we can not only cover that PPA time, but we can raise standards at the same time. And so then I got a group of sports coaches together to do work experience with me to start with. Yeah. and we went around the schools and we were doing free taster afternoons, getting the children buzzing, great afternoon of sport, getting them all really up for it. And then what would happen then is that the children would then finish our session, they'd be going back into school, they're all, you know, full of joy and happiness, and they've had a great afternoon, and they're telling the teachers and the head, that was amazing, that was brilliant. So that's when I go into the office to see the head, strike while the iron's hot, and pull off a contract. So that's how I got my first few contracts, and then those few contracts then started in the September, and on the back of that, I was able to employ 2 people full time and 5 or 6 people part time, and I was off. And then
so this went from a sort of very seasonal summer camp at best type business into a regular weekly, you know, booking type business as well.
So the contracts were anything from a day a week up to you know, contracts might be 15 days a week where they have 3 specialists doing full time, same time, same place, every week, contracted for the academic year.
Wow. Okay.
So so it went to quite quickly to from that seasonal kind of thing to finding a gap, finding a niche, and all of a sudden we've got a business with a team, and off we go. But
adapting, I mean, that change in legislation was a real opportunity that you obviously spotted. And this is, I think, when people say that a gap in the market, and I think people that don't, what does that mean? What the heck does a gap in the market look like? But specifically, it's that, isn't it? Some piece of legislation or a change, whatever it is, and we fill that gap with a value of our added service, and then we get out there on the moped and start selling it as well.
Yeah, I think when people talk about a gap in the market, it's finding a new problem or not necessarily new. It's basically finding a solution for a problem that hasn't been given a solution yet, isn't it?
Yes.
A new market. So off I went, and and I bootstrapped to that point, and I bootstrapped then all the way, and grew it, scaled it over the years, built to over 100 staff, all organically, all just me, which was the hard way to do it.
Sure.
That was the difficult way to do it, without investment, without partners. But but as a result, you know, I got more bumps and bruises than I would have done otherwise. Learned more stuff than I would have done otherwise. And had the extreme lows, had the extreme highs, and everything in between. But learned a heck of a lot. And now puts me in a great position to use what I've learned to help. Help other entrepreneurs that want to scale, want to get from A to B. And I exited operationally in September 20.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm now non-exec chair of that business, Superstars, because we went from sports stars to superstars in year 2 or 3.
Okay.
We diversified into music, drama, and art as well.
Yes. Okay.
To offer more. So I still own the business, but I run it through a management team, and I've got my left-hand lady, Kathy, that's running the business, and I chair the board meeting once a month, and I do a weekly one-to-one with Kathy.
So your involvement in the business now is really reasonably limited, but through this excellent, fabulous team that you've built and developed.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. The board meeting is half a day.
Yeah.
And we do a weekly 1 hour one-to-one. So all in all, it's a day. But they're doing a great job. And, particularly at the moment, it's really tough at the moment. We've just come off the call with Kathy, and she tells me that as it stands right now, we've got 25% of the workforce off with COVID-related stuff.
Yeah. This is a brave new world, isn't it? Brave new world.
Yeah. And that's that. I think only one of them have actually got COVID.
Sure.
The rest are all having to self-isolate, wait for PCRs, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
So you effectively sort of built the business from scratch. You bootstrapped it up, and then you got your freedom. And this is I think the dream, if you like, a vision for a lot of entrepreneurs. They hear this, soul to them as a dream. You build it, you grow it, you get away from it, it runs without you, and away you go. But you've done that, you've achieved. Did it feel very odd, very strange, passing the baby across to the team at all?
So because it was always that was always the dream, that was always the goal. And I wanted to get to a position where I could build up by the time I was 40, I built up a financial situation that would allow me to get to the point where you can, you don't necessarily have to have a job, and that the investments that we've made give us enough passive income to provide for the lifestyle that we want. And you can ask yourself, what would I do if I didn't have to work? And I didn't want to be in a position where I had to rely on a big payday at the end of it in terms of a liquidity event from the point of view of an exit, because I think that's risky. It may never happen. So I built wealth up as I went along, through liquidity events, through dividends each year, and that kind of stuff. And B, I didn't want to ever be put in a corner where I had to choose between integrity and money. And what I mean by that is, maybe I get to that point where, okay, I'm 40, I want to exit, I want that freedom, put it up for sale, and end up having a choice between selling to somebody that maybe I don't think are the right people, or not exiting. So I would never want to sell it to a trade sale where I thought, they may rip the heart out of the business. Who knows what might happen to the people that have worked for me for all this time. So that was really important as well. And I think when people think of exit, a lot of people will automatically think that's you exiting your shareholding, but it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that way.
Agreed. I think the thing is that there is this myth out there that you build a business, you grow it, then you sell it and you walk away and you cash in the bank and away you go. It does happen, but I think for me, and I see this a lot as well, is where if you build a business and you can be sort of passive, semi-passive involved in it, rather than sell it once, it sort of feeds you forever. It keeps on going. It raises and grows and builds and develops. You still keep the asset. At some point, maybe somebody will buy it from you at some point, but it's going to feed you along the way. That seems to be a more elegant route to do it anyway, I would have thought.
I think, and for me, it's almost like by not selling it, by keeping the business as an asset, I'm remaining more diversified than if I did buy it. So because if I sold it, what would I do? I'd invest it in property, no doubt.
Sure.
So I mean, I've invested in stocks and shares. I've invested in property. Most of it is now in property. So I've already got property and shares as an income stream. If I sold the business, that would be one less diversified income stream. So I would put it into one of those two. And then my range of income streams would be property, stocks and shares. Whereas by keeping it, I've got income streams coming property, stocks and shares, and business.
Absolutely,
Which is, so I see
spreads the risk. So on the journey so far, I mean, you've achieved this, and the thing is, I think people look at you and what you've achieved, and on the outside looking in, it all seems pretty straightforward and serene and very easy, and I know it's not, absolutely. But people looking at this and they're considering either they're starting their business or they're on the journey, they want to follow and mimic what you've done. What are the sort of the top three, I know this might be an unfair question, but top three tips or lessons or guidance you would give to people to watch out for, or advice that you would do for anybody who wants to mimic what you've done?
I think that the first one, the most important one, is to really understand that this is going to be really flipping hard, and it's not a bed of roses. There are extreme highs, but there are also extreme lows. And behind all the the press articles and all that kind of stuff, behind that glamour it's not always that glamorous.
Mhm.
And you've got to be prepared to go through the sleepless nights, the ups and the downs.
Yeah.
You know, parts of it are just horrible.
Mm.
You know, when you know that you're a real, you've got that real kind of thick skin
Mm.
of an entrepreneur that you need when you've been able to get through those kind of situations where it's 2 days before payroll, something's happened and you haven't got enough cash in the bank.
Yep.
As it stands, you are not going to make payroll.
Mhm. Yep.
And the result of that is horrendous. Obviously, people
Absolutely.
screaming at you, people not being able to pay their bills. It's just that's the worst thing, it's the worst thing that can happen outside of the business going bust, really.
Sure.
But you've got 2 days, you have to find a solution.
Mhm.
And you'll find it.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll get a solution.
Yeah.
But it's going through those kind of moments and those heart sinking moments. And I kind of think that whatever happens, when you get one of those setbacks that drop in and you get that horrible gut feeling, give it to what I've learned is in 2 weeks, it will feel better.
Yes.
Most things in 2 weeks, it will feel better. And very often it will become, you'll look back and think, actually, that's now an opportunity.
Yep.
It might be, say, for example, a key person hands in their notice out of the blue from nowhere.
Yep.
You get that hammer blow and like, oh no, what am I going to do? People reporting to them and all this. And then 2 weeks later, oh, actually, this has turned out quite good because it means I can promote this person and they're a rising star in the business, et cetera, et cetera. So resilience, I think, is
right. Okay.
is number one for me.
So job number one, resilient, fabulous. Okay, excellent. Good point.
Resilience. I'd probably say resilience.
Yeah, but there you go.
That'd be cheating, wouldn't it? So yeah, resilience would be number one. Secondly, a lot of people say to you, right, okay, so what's the secret? What's the formula? What's the secret to success?
Yeah. Okay.
And the big secret is that there is no secret.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard graft.
Yeah.
It's being prepared to put in the hours. It's being able to sacrifice, particularly at the beginning. Don't, unless you go and get that big pot fund and you get a salary, put yourself on a salary, you've got to go through periods of not paying yourself and find a way to get money in, whether that's like I did, working in the night, or whatever it might be. It's that sacrifice really, and being prepared to play the long game. So I think, society these days, it's such an instant gratification culture,
Interesting.
With these things that are great in some ways but not great in another. It's like, if I want a pizza, bang bang bang, I'll get one now.
Sure.
I want a date, I want a new girlfriend, bam 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 bam, swipe swipe swipe, whatever they do, I'll get one now. It's if I want to be successful, I'll go on the X Factor and be successful now. I'll go on Dragon's Den, get funding, I'll be successful now. But the reality is it takes time, and
absolutely,
sometimes it can take 10 years to be an overnight success.
Indeed.
So I think, secondly, hard graft.
Yes.
Knowing that there's not a quick fix to this.
Yeah.
And it bothers me that you just see all this stuff on YouTube and social media. Click here, come on my training course, and I'll teach you my 7 steps to becoming a zillionaire in 4 seconds.
Yeah.
But there we are. So that's 2, isn't it? Resilience, hard graft. What would the third be?
No pressure, you see, no pressure.
Yeah. What would the third be? I think the third would be to get yourself around people that have been there and done it, and take mentorship, take advice, be a continual learner. Know that you're never the finished article. I got, my best advice came from people that had been there and done it and worn the t-shirt. David, yourself, obviously in those early days was invaluable. The support that I got from you, and then down the line worked with other people in Ned roles, and there's a lot of people out there that that haven't done it, that were prepared to advise you on how to do it.
Sure. Yes. There's lots of those out there. Be careful. Tread carefully.
But it's finding those people that have been there and done it, and that's what motivates me to want to do that now myself. And whether that's Ned roles, mentor advisor, growth advisors, whatever that.
Okay, you've built, Superstars. It's running, it's growing. Okay, there's ups and downs, always going to be that. You've got some sort of time on your hands now, by the sound of it, a little bit, which is great. What's next for you then? Where do you see your entrepreneurial business journey going next?
Yeah, so I'd said that once I exited, I said for a year I'm going to say no to everything. As you know, when you exit, that's when people find out, you get opportunities, and I think I've seen so many people that have just taken opportunities, first ones that have come along, and the second one and the third one, and find themselves all of a sudden very busy doing the stuff that they never intended to do, and not doing some of the stuff which they wanted to exit for, like stuff for the family or more leisure time around some more entrepreneurial pursuits. So I wanted to make sure that whatever I did next, it was definitely what I wanted to do. So I spent a year not doing any kind of business stuff, but I kept myself busy doing property investment and adding to the portfolio. So it wasn't quiet. But property isn't my passion. That's just a form of investment for me. So that's on the side. That's all passive, all with property managers now. But there's a few key things that I learned. I think that I was building towards that dream and of getting to 40, financial freedom, being able to then do whatever I wanted. And when I got there, of course, there was elation and celebrating with the family, and it felt brilliant. And that lasted for a little while, but then quite quickly that started to fade away. And I quite quickly started feeling it wasn't any kind of lowness or anything like that, but it was just a little bit of a vacuum, just a little bit of something missing. And looking back over my shoulder thinking, there were some good times. They were some really good times. Looking back to the start and the growth and stuff, and looking back really fondly, and seeing that actually a lot of the buzz came from the journey, not necessarily the destination.
Great point.
And actually, after the initial elation, the actual hitting of that goal started to feel a little bit like an anticlimax. And so it was all, and I realized that it was because I didn't have a goal that the next goal that I was striving. So it was always going to be like that until I had the next thing that I was striving for. So I kind of then looked at what I was doing, because I wanted to stick to the thing of giving it a year before I throw myself into something. But then I started to set goals within the property side of things. So I had, and that definitely helped. But the other big thing I learned from retirement is that I will never ever retire.
Retirement sucks, doesn't it? I mean, let's be fair, doesn't it?
It's just it's not attractive.
No.
It sounds attractive when you're busy as heck. But it's so dull. There's only so many golf balls you can hit, and I don't
absolutely like my goodness
that much. And the kids are at school, and all your mates have got jobs. So that brings us up to the last few weeks really, where I've decided I've kind of worked out what I want to do, worked out my sweet spot, and that is to use what I've learned and all the knowledge and tools and skills that I've picked up along the way to help other business owners, entrepreneurs to scale through a kind of tried and tested strategic approach, that will take the form of kind of like an SME, non-executive director, working with them, sitting on the board, working with them a couple of days a month, to help them to get them to work on the business, strengthen the areas. I'm creating there wasn't one out there that I thought was comprehensive enough. So I've created I am creating my own kind of scale-up diagnostic tool. Fit for scale, which it kind of goes through all the different things which I've learned you need to have in place in order to scale. So it's all well and good having a growth plan, but if you haven't got some of the basics in place, you could create a monster.
Sure.
Right. So it would start as take them through a diagnostic, that pumps out a report, then a written report of what parts of the business needs to be strengthened. And then go through, the usual stuff, strategic planning and the implementation and review and stuff like that. Yeah. So, but it's been really nice because it's only the last few weeks which I've kind of like stepped out into the world of it. And what I've learned from the response I've had and the appeal that seems to be there is that actually people that have been there, done it, got the t-shirt, and now have got the inclination and the time to go in and help others to scale seems to be really, really rare. So, which is nice because it means that, people want to talk to me.
Absolutely, you have got the t-shirt, you've got the credibility that goes with it, which many people don't have. So absolutely right.
Yeah. So already in the first few weeks, doors have opened and opportunities are there, and I think I've picked up my first client, I guess.
Excellent. Oh, congratulations. Really good.
The other day, that was my first meeting. So we've got there's another couple of dots and T's to cross.
Sure.
But yeah, so
this is brave new world for you. And I think it's really interesting point you make. And I've been there. I do what I do. I see this a lot. I've done it myself as well, where you fight and you struggle to achieve the dream and the goal. When you get there, you celebrate the goal, but then you realize that somebody's taken the dream away from you, because there's a dream that kept us going, wasn't it? When you achieve it, the dream's gone. They have to have another dream to sort of go for then as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a strange feeling, isn't it?
It is strange. No, it really is odd. And this is why, say, I know retirement sucks. Okay, so many golf balls you can hit in this sort of thing, but it is the journey that keeps us engaged and keeps it exciting for all of us, I think. So
I think I heard somebody call it paradise syndrome before.
Oh yeah, okay, there you go.
Where you think you put that on a pedestal as paradise, and you get there, and you're looking around and you're going, where is everyone? Where's the party gone?
But paradise is a lonely place to be, actually, because not many people get there. And actually, what we tend to enjoy is the camaraderie, the spirit, the journey, the people, the team, the frustrations that go with it as well. But I think it's a great point you make. I think it's the journey that makes it all more enjoyable. So.
And all of a sudden now I'm at the very start of another journey. And I feel much more alive. I feel like I'm much more in touch with my mojo again, passion and excited.
Fabulous.
And I'm back to that. I'm now back to that. Not being able to sleep at night because my brain's too excited.
Yes, there you go. But that's part of the fun as well.
That's when
Do you still have the moped you can drive around? What have you traded up now?
well, yeah, maybe I need to get the version 2.0, don't I?
There you go. Exactly. maybe.
Yeah.
So for people listening to this conversation, it's been really inspirational. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for that. If people, they want to contact you, how can people contact you and say, either thanks for your story, or they want to get in touch? What's the best way of getting in touch with James?
So I'm on LinkedIn. So if you put into the search bar James Taylor and put James Taylor Superstars, I'll come up. Email, which is james.taylor, TAYLOR @super-stars.org.uk. That's probably best.
Fabulous.
If there's anyone out there that wants to just have a coffee or a virtual coffee about what they're up to and any problems they've got, if I can share any experience, then I'm more than happy to do that.
Fabulous. Well, look, James, obviously we know each other, and it's really good to reconnect. We were reconnected because I think we dashed off to the USA.
That's right, yeah.
All that's what we've been to different universities, that sort of thing. But really good. And I do remember when we spoke last time that some of the pivotal meetings. It's interesting you says when we met at the Strensham services, I think it was, and had a look at numbers and things like that, and it all goes into the mix. But no, it's a pleasure to see you have done so well, and I don't mean that in a patronizing way, but you've gone through the journey and living the dream, but you've got another dream to go for now.
That's right.
So I really appreciate your time, and we're speaking as we go along anyway, so great to have you.
Absolutely.
Great to be back in each other's universe again.
That's it.
Excellent. All right. Well, Fab, thank you for now. We'll leave it there for now. For everybody who's listening and watching this, please go contact James Taylor, through LinkedIn or email. At least say hello or thank you for the story. And if you think James can help you on your entrepreneurial journey, book a virtual Zoom coffee, and James will come round on his moped and put his crash helmet under the bush. You never know, but it would be
under the desk.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah, I'll have a nice shirt on and everything, but under the desk is the helmet, and I might be in my pajama bottoms as well.
There you go. All things are possible now. All things are possible. All right, sir. So great speaking with you. Thank you again. Appreciate it. This will be up onto YouTube and the normal channels as we go along. And appreciate your time, and have a great afternoon.
Brilliant to see you, Dave.
Thanks. See you soon. Take care.